Good day, you're welcome to today's lesson. And this lesson will be talking about cascade and inheritance. Cascade and inheritance. This is a very broad topic, and I would love you to take your time and understand this thing very well. What is cascade and what is inheritance? We have had a whiteboard tutorial on this already, and they are very clear already. So this is just the practical aspect to help you understand and grab whatever we did in our previous lesson better in this case. Okay. So cascade and inheritance is just about CSS, and this how to apply styles to your document or your HTML file or whichever one that you would want to give the name. Okay, so please again, as I said earlier on, this is a very tough topic and it is very difficult to understand, but I have tried to come down to a level that you will understand even as a newbie. You wouldn't get this anywhere. It is just here, Rose Consult, that you are going to get this for free, absolutely free. Okay, and you have a better understanding. So watch with me till the end of this video in order to understand this better. Cascade and inheritance is very important in the course of our work as what developers and designers, especially for a website. Okay, so what is this cascade? What is this inheritance? As I said earlier on, cascade is just a rule, and inheritance as well is also a rule which states specifically that we should obey certain rules in order to get certain output and certain expected result. Okay, so for instance, let's say a time to come in the course of your work, you try applying some style to a certain element, and the expected output or the expected result is not actually what you are getting. This topic will help you understand and know the reason why you are not getting the expected output or the expected result. So bear with me, as I said earlier on. Let's watch to the end, and at the end of this you will understand this thing better. So this what I have just basically two things in my test file. I don't want to complicate stuff over here, so I decided to bring everything down to your understanding. So let's go to our browser and view this file and see the output that we are having over here. Okay, so this is our browser. We have cascade and inheritance, and I have just one paragraph. I call it I am a paragraph. That's all. So let's start. The problem starts mainly when we start applying styles, and styles are applied using CSS. Okay, in this case I'm using an internal method of applying CSS to my HTML. Okay, so you bear with me in this one. Okay, so let's move on. We have H1. Then we will have to apply a style that's easily visible so that we'll know what is actually happening. Okay, we know what is actually happening. So in this case, I'm applying a style of the color property, and I'm giving it a value of red to our H1 element, which means we are expecting our H1 element to be in the color red in our web browser when it is viewed. Okay, so let's go into our web browser now. It is still black. Why? I haven't refreshed it. Let me refresh it. Okay, so we have cascade and inheritance in the color red now. Okay, this just the starting of everything. The problem is coming. So let's move on. Let's take the problem a bit further and see solutions to that. Again, I call on my H1 element. Okay, H1 element, and I would still love to give it a color. Okay, a color, and in this case I will give it the color blue. I just want to give it properties that are easily visible so that we will know what is happening. Okay, so the color blue, we are still having red. Why? I haven't refreshed it. Let me refresh my browser and see. So we have the color blue appearing. What is the problem here? Someone might say I gave it the color red as my first rule set or my first declaration, so I'm expecting it, because it is the first, I'm expecting it to appear in the color red and not blue as the second declaration determines. Okay, so this is where the principle of cascade or the rule of cascade comes into play. The rule of cascade is very simple and states that the latter declaration or the last declaration for a particular selector or a particular type of selector wins whatever it is. So if let's say I have this one, the H1 here is called a selector, of which I'm sure you already know by now. So the H1 is a selector, and because it is the same type, or it is the same selector, and I'm giving it the same property, okay, in this case we are giving it color property at the same places, okay, the same property, the color here will have to change. The rule of Cascade states that the last word declaration wins. The last declaration wins. So I should be getting blue color. That's the rule of Cascade. So if I am to specify another color for the H1 element, then I will be getting that color instead of the blue color. Okay, because that color might be coming last if only I decide to give it to make it last in my source code here. Okay, I hope it is making sense and clear. This is how best I can explain it. If you don't understand, I will advise you go back to our whiteboard tutorial on this and understand this stuff better, because they will help you a lot. They are your key to success. Okay, so let's take it on. Now let's come here. You see that with my H1 element I have a class and I've given it a value of color. We are going to apply we are going to use this color class, and we are going to use this color class as a selector, and we apply a color property and change the value, and we will see the output. Okay, so I would love to bring it to the first. We call on the color selector with what a period or a full stop or a dot, then the name of the value that we pass, or the value that we pass to the color class, to the class. Okay, so I would want to give it a property of color, and maybe I should give it the color purple. Okay, so purple. So let's see. The rule of Cascade states that the latter declaration wins. In this case, we have color to be our first declaration, red. Okay, we have purple to be our first declaration, red to be our second declaration, blue to be our third declaration, and blue is the last here. So we are expecting our H1 element to be in the color blue, and not purple or red. Okay, so please take note of this. Let's go to our browser now and see what actually happens. But before then, let me try and see if I would be able to save this file. Okay, so it is saved now. We can continue. Okay, now let's go. Let me refresh the browser and see. We are having a purple color for the H1 element, which is Cascade and inheritance. Why is this happening? Because the rule of Cascade was very clear that the latter declaration wins. Okay, so another rule comes into play, and this rule is called specificity. Please take note of this. Specificity is very simple, and it is obtained from the word specific. Okay, a specific, particular, certain, or something of that sort. You should know that we are talking about something which is more specific. In this case, let's say I have about H1 elements, about 25 of them in this page. Okay, for the sake of clarity, I would love to add one more H1 element, then we'll see something. Okay, we'll see something over here. Okay, maybe I will just write specificity over here, and let's see what happens. Okay, so we see that specificity is in the color blue, and Cascade and inheritance is in the color purple. What is happening? So the rule of specificity states very clearly, and it is very simple, that the more specific selector wins the game. Okay, the more specific selector wins the game. So let's say, as I said earlier on, we applied different colors to our H1 element. First, we applied a color of red. Second, we apply a color of blue. And lastly, we are applying a color of purple. The color of blue is applied to our specificity, or the second H1 element, because that's the color we specified for H1 element. Okay, if we were to take off this color class now, or color class declaration now, all of our h1 element will automatically be in the color blue. Okay, that's the rule of specificity, because the color blue comes last year. But that's the rule of cascade, because the color blue comes last in this source code. Okay, but when it comes to specificity, it states that the more specific should win. So in this case, the color is a class that's particular, and it is only specific to the first h1 element. So if we are applying a color and we call on the class attribute, or the class attribute value, it should win the order of the day, or it should be able to apply the specific color or the specific property than to apply it to any other element. Okay, so that's great. Now let's go back to our browser again. I am a paragraph, install the color black. I hope now we understand cascade, we understand specificity. We move on to the next topic, which is inheritance. We will be diving much deeper in this later on in this same tutorial, but we'll have to take our time and go in one after the other. Okay, so let's go back to our editor, our text editor, and see something. Okay, let's go back to our text editor and see something. Okay, so that's great. We are in our text editor now. Okay, let me move on and give our body element a color. Okay, our body element a color. Our body element a color. Okay, our body element, I want to give it a color. I'm using color because color is easily visible to each and everyone. You would see it straight away. That's why I love using colors for my tutorials. Okay, let me call it lime green. Sorry, I think I have to come here. Having problems here. Sorry. Okay, so I would love to give it the color lime. Lime green. Okay, let me give it lime green. Let's see something. I'm giving my body element lime green, but let's see what actually happens over here. Bear in mind, I haven't given any color to my paragraph element. Okay, so let's go. Refresh, and you see the paragraph element, I am a paragraph, is now in the color lime green. This is where the power of inheritance come into play. The power or the rule of inheritance states very simply that any property or any declaration that's set to a parent element can be inherited by a child element. Okay, a child element. I hope you understand what a child element is, what a parent element is, from our whiteboard tutorial on how CSS works, when we did talk about the DOM, that the document object model. When we did talk about that, you did understand very well. So you should know a parent element now and a child element. For the sake of clarity and for the sake of this tutorial, I would love to explain or throw a bit of light on what a parent element is and what a child element is. So let's take our body element here. You can see that the level of the body element, that's the first less than sign of the body element here. Let me highlight it so that you know what I'm talking of. Not you, I'm talking of this guy. Okay, so our body element is now highlighted. You can see the block level of our body element compared to the H1 element. You see that the H1 element is somehow shifted to the right, a bit away from where our body element starts. Okay, the paragraph element as well shift to the right as compared to our body element. So we say that the body element in this case is what? A parent to the H1 elements over here, as well as the paragraph element over here. So if we pass a declaration to our body element without making a different declaration for our children or our child elements for the body element, then those declarations should be passed on to our child elements directly. Okay, you will ask yourself, why isn't that the H1 elements over here are not in the color lime green? They are not in the color lime green because the color property for them has been changed or has been set, which in the case of the paragraph element, we didn't set any color property for the paragraph element. Okay, so please you take key note of this. This is the power of inheritance. Okay, now that we understand specificity, cascade and inheritance, we move on to know how to control this stuff. First of all, we start with tackling or controlling inheritance. Controlling inheritance is just a way to avoid this stuff that we are seeing over here. Maybe I didn't actually want my paragraph element, my paragraph element to be in the color lime green. In that case, if I want it to be in a different color, then I'll have to set the color for my paragraph element. But if I still want my my paragraph element to be in the color black as it used to be, then I'll have to control the inheritance from the body element. Okay, controlling inheritance is all about setting some values to the type of the type of element you don't want that property to be inherited. Okay, so in this case, I don't want my paragraph element or my paragraph selector or my type element or tag selector, which is paragraph 2, inherit the color property from this. Okay, so let's see. We have 3 values that you can set. Let's go to our style, then we'll be able to. So then let's pass some declaration over here. So we call color. Okay, we call on color. We have 4 values you can set to this. 4 values. The first one is inherit. The second one is initial. The third one is onset. The last one is revert. So we'll try all of these and understand how they function. So inherit will mean it should inherit the property that has been set on its parent. Okay, so inherit. So in this case, we will still have the color lime green as our color for the paragraph element. Refreshing our browser 25,000 million times, we didn't make any changes over here. Okay, so let's go back and set another value over here. So as I said, we have 4 different values in controlling inheritance. The next one is onset, and let's see the output here. So it is also still giving us the color lime green. Okay, so let's move on to the next one, and the next one is revert. Okay, revert. Think so. I hope I'm quoting the thing right. So let's go to our browser and see the output now. It is also giving us the output of this. Then I think the next one or the last one will be initial. Okay, the last one will be initial. Okay, so let's see initial, and we have the color black. Okay, so you see, we have been able to control the inheritance from here. We have been able to control the inheritance on our paragraph property, on our paragraph element over here, using this 4 set of values. The values, what they mean, have been explained well in our whiteboard tutorial. So I will advise you go back and watch our whiteboard tutorial for a better understanding. But if you want a quick recap to all of this, I can give you here. Okay, so the inherit value tells the browser to search for the closest parent value and let the current element inherit that value. Okay, so what is the current or the closest parent element in this case for the paragraph element? So the closest or the closest or current parent element for the paragraph element in this case is what? Our body element. So if we set the value to inherit, we are telling it to inherit that property or that value for the body element that we did set earlier on. Then the initial element, the initial value. Okay, so let me see if I will get this. Okay, so it said the initial keyword tells the browser to use the CSS default value of the given property. The CSS default value of the given property. Okay, the CSS default value for a given property. So for instance, when we set our value to initial, you saw that the color automatically changed to what? Black. And this is what we call the CSS default value for that property. So in this case, whenever you write anything in your HTML file or document and you don't specify a color, automatically your color will be in the color black, because that's the default value that we set our our color property to. That's the default value it has been set to already. So you take key note of that. Then I think the next one is the onset value. The onset value may behave the same way as the inherit value, but there is a difference over here that you should take note of. Okay, so let me see. Is it inherited, non-inherited properties? Then the onset value works the same as inherit for inherited property types. Okay, example, for the text color property, it will work like inherit value. In that case, if we set the value to what? Onset, we should be getting the same color for our parent element, or the color that was set for our parent element. It works the same way like that. We have something that we call inherited property and non-inherited property, and you will have to know this by force and by compulsory. Okay, so visit our whiteboard tutorial on this for a better understanding. Okay, then the rivet. Okay, so let me see. The rivet value. So this prefers the user agent value. The user agent value to the CSS base value for a property. What is this user agent? You are not new to this. User agent is just the web browsers that we use to view our documents, and the web browsers that we use to view our document, they are called user agents. So they have their specific colors that has been set. Sometimes they are the same as what? The CSS default value. Other times they might be different from the CSS default value. So please, you take key note of this. It is very, very important. Okay, so we are done with controlling inheritance. Then one thing that I want to emphasize is the all property. Let's say I've specified a whole bunch of rules for my body element that I don't want my paragraph element to inherit. Then in that case, I wouldn't have to go through the pain of stating each and every value and setting it to don't inherit or unset or initial or whatever be the value that I want to set. Okay, I hope you are getting me. So in this case, let's say let me try to make this more understanding to you by giving new values over here. So let me see if I want to set a font size here, a font size of, let's say 45 font size of 45 pixels. 45 pixels over here. Then in that case, let's see the output first, so you see how big this thing is. If I don't want my paragraph element to inherit both the color set on this and the font size, then I'll have to use the all property, and it has the same value as what okay, so it is the same value as what inheritance. It is the same value as inheritance, and you should take keynote. So in this case, I wouldn't have to be specifying maybe the color property. No, I just have to write all. Then I will set my value to initial. Initial, and let's see how it works. Okay, so you can see that our paragraph is still in the color black, and also as smaller as compared to Cascade and Inheritance and Specificity as we have them over here. So the all property is used to unset or reset everything that the body element or the parent element has that you don't want the child element to inherit. Okay, you don't want the child element to inherit. Okay, our next thing, which is the most important thing in this course, is how to calculate for specificity. So specificity talks about selectors, and you should know what selectors are. If you don't understand what selectors are, then I will advise you to go back to our whiteboard tutorial on selectors and also practicals on selectors to better understand what these terms means, because we wouldn't be able to cover almost everything here. Okay, so calculating specificity is very simple. We have assigned some figures to the various selectors that we do have, and through that we are able to know what the expected output or the expected result should be when we apply certain style or properties to our elements or selectors or our file. Okay, it is very important that you understand these things. It is very, very important that you understand these things. Okay, so let's take it a bit further. We are saying there are rules that you will have to know. There are rules. So I would love to explain the rules to you. As I said, the calculation of specificity is just we assigning or giving figures to the various types of selectors that we have. Then we'll be able to calculate, even though it is not something that's done normally. But with Roche Console, it is possible. You'll be able to calculate this out of hand, and you would know which one should be the expected output. Okay, also you wouldn't be worrying about what will be coming out of maybe coincidence or something of that sort. So let's take it on. So we are assigning a value of 1000, of course, a value of 1000 to inline rule set. If you have watched our whiteboard tutorial, you should know what an inline rule set or inline method of adding CSS to HTML is. So inline is automatically very specific, and that one targets a specific element. Okay, a specific element, and therefore we say that that one has a value of 1000. It has a value of 100,000. Okay, then when we move on, ID selectors have a value of what? 100. They have a value of 100, so you take note of that. If you move on to class, attribute, and pseudo class selectors, they have a value of 10. 10. They have a value of 10. Note ID has a value of what? 100. Okay, let's move on to the next type of selectors. For element and pseudo element selectors, they have a value of 1. They have a value of 1. Okay, so let's begin. With specificity, we will understand these things better. So let's start. Let's say I give this. I want to just, for the sake of those who are joining us for today, to understand something, even though they haven't watched the previous videos, I would love to give some styling to our paragraph element over here, and I'll call the color property. Okay, the color property, and I'll give it a value. I'll give it a value of, let's say, violet. A value of violet, and we are good to go. Okay, so let's see the output now. Okay, so we can see that our paragraph is now in violet color now, which is very good. Okay, so what I just did is what we call the inline method of adding CSS. In that case, it is written inside of the element that you want to target. Okay, and that one has a value of 1000. So if, let's say, I apply any other value or any other thing, okay, let's say I've set all to initial, and let's say I would want to change the color to maybe red. Let's see if I'll get a red color or a violet color specified earlier on. So let's refresh it. We are still having it. Let me refresh it again. We are still having it. Let me refresh it again. Okay, so why is this happening? This is happening because the style element inside of our paragraph element has what, a value of 1000, which is above what we just specified here. That's the paragraph selector or the p selector over here, which has a value of just 1. Okay, it has a value of just 1. So let me see if I would be able to give it some comments over here. So specificity of, let's see, it should be, we should start from, what is this, 0001. Okay, so this has a specificity of 000. Unfortunately, I'll have to end here, and we continue this tutorial later on. So our next tutorial will be tackling how to calculate specificity in more detail, and we'll also be talking about the important declaration, which we will learn later on. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to this channel. It is the best of one of the channels out there that will teach you to better understand website design and development with ease. Thank you for watching once again. Stay blessed and stay tuned. Don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, like and share. Thank you for now. Bye bye.